This is Joe, the old stargazer, and I'd like to welcome you to Act 6, The Lion Roars. Again, if you haven't seen the first 5 episodes in this series, I recommend you watch them in the proper order. You'll learn a lot more that way. Also, watch them in full screen whenever possible. Well, we've seen the circumpolar stars, the stars of summer, autumn, and winter. Now we take a look at the stars of spring. Since I'm calling this episode The Lion Roars, I guess we will start with another fairly well-known constellation, Leo the Lion. All during the spring, Leo is high in the southern sky. He's fairly easy to find and actually looks like a lion, to my eyes at least. Start with this backwards question mark pattern of stars that reminds you of a lion's mane. The bright star at the bottom is Regulus, which is Greek for little king. And of course the lion is the king of the beasts. Behind the question mark is a triangle of stars that represents the lion's hindquarters. Yep, that's definitely a lion. Like everything in Greek mythology, Leo was the biggest, baddest, strongest lion in all of history. He was so fierce that arrows would bounce right off of him, and the sharpest sword couldn't even scratch his mighty skin. Most cultures in history have seen this constellation as a lion. It is said that Orion the Hunter battled Leo and managed to defeat him. Some representations of Orion show him holding the lion's skin in his left hand instead of a bow. The star at the end of the lion's tail is called Denebola, Arabic for, you guessed it, lion's tail. Just to the west of Leo is an inverted Y-shaped group of dim stars that form the constellation of Cancer. I think it kind of looks like the Eiffel Tower myself. In this case, Cancer represents a crab. I guess with a little imagination you can see a crab here. Maybe a hermit crab wearing a pointed shell on its back. Right in the middle of the crab, on a clear night, you might be able to make out a cluster of dim stars. This is called the beehive. This was another group of dim stars that was often used as an eyesight test. It was also used by ancient weather forecasters, the idea being that if you can't see the beehive, a storm must be coming. Just behind Leo's tail to the east is a dim cluster of stars. On a good, clear night in a dark location, they can be seen glittering like lights reflecting off long, flowing hair. And in fact, this is exactly what this constellation represents. It is called Coma Berenices, or Berenice's hair. Berenice was a queen in ancient Egypt. One day the king went off to battle a fearsome foe. Berenice, worried that he might not return to her, cut off her long, flowing, beautiful hair and placed it on the altar of the Egyptian gods as an offering for her husband's safe return. Return he did, without a scratch. Upon seeing his wife, he asked her in astonishment that age-old question, "What have you done to your hair?" She told him the story of her sacrifice, but the king wanted to see for himself. Entering the temple, he walked up to the altar and found it empty. No sign of Bernice's hair anywhere. He called all the priests of the temple together and told them that if they did not find the queen's hair and the thief who obviously stole it, he would behead them all next morning. One of the priests, who was obviously pretty smart, called the king out into the courtyard and pointed up into the sky and said, "Look, your majesty, the gods have accepted her gift and placed it in the sky for all to see." Apparently the king spent a lot of his time looking down and not up at the stars, or he would have known that that star pattern had been there all along. But at any rate, he accepted the explanation, and he and Bernice lived happily ever after. Let's turn our attention north to our old friend, the Big Dipper. Remember how to find it? This time, we will use the handle of the dipper to help us find two bright stars and the constellations associated with them. If we follow the curving line of the dipper's handle and extend it across the sky in an arc, we run into this star, Arcturus, in the constellation of Boötes. Moving further along, we run into the star Spica in the constellation of Virgo. To help you remember this, we arc to Arcturus and speed on to Spica. Boötes looks like nothing more than a man's wide necktie upside down, or a cartoon representation of an exclamation point. Some people say it looks like an ice cream cone. That's not bad. There are many different stories about this constellation. Sometimes Boötes is known as the bear driver because he seems to herd the bears around the sky. Some Greek legends say the star represents Icarus. In some stories, he represents Arcus, Callisto's son, now represented by Ursa Minor. In this legend, Arcus was the inventor of the plow. Boötes has also been called Atlas since he appears to hold up the North Celestial Pole. The ice cream cone shape has been called the wolves by Arab astronomers, and early Greek astronomers called this constellation the wolf as well. The Hebrews called it the barking dog. Arab astronomers named the star Arcturus, a name which means guardian of the bear. The star Spica is in the constellation of Virgo. Well, let's just call her a maiden for now. When Virgo rises above the eastern horizon in early spring, she symbolizes the rebirth of the land. The star Spica represents an ear of wheat from the coming harvest. The Egyptians worshipped this star and built temples to it to ensure good crops. To the east of Arcturus lies a circle of stars known as Corona Borealis, or the Northern Crown. Many stories of crowns from ancient legends are seen as being represented here. The Shawnee Indians tell the story of White Hawk, a hunter who witnessed celestial beings coming down from the sky in a bowl of stars. Arab astronomers saw this pattern as a dish or a bowl, and named the brightest star in the pattern Alphecca, which means the brightest in the dish. Last, but surely not least, is another dim constellation that might be difficult for you to see. Like the constellation Eridanus, it stretches across the southern sky, covering a wide area. It starts down below Spica, winds its way west, ending in a circle of stars just south of the crab. This is Hydra, the sea serpent. Hydra was one of the monsters that Hercules had to contend with in his 12 labors, given to him by the gods. As fast as you cut off one of the monster's heads, 2 grew back. Hercules had help on this one from his nephew Iolaus. As soon as Hercules cut off a head, Iolaus would seal the wound with molten iron, preventing a new head from growing back. To the Egyptians, the constellation was the heavenly sister of the river Nile. Well, that concludes our series on the constellations. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I hope you've learned a bit more about the night sky, and I really hope that I've inspired you to go out and look up at the night sky. In future episodes, I'll be looking at other interesting aspects of astronomy. Stick around. I hope it's going to be fun for all. Oh, before I go, I did promise to point out a few tools you can use to further study the night sky. Of course, there's the great program Stellarium that I mentioned earlier. Another program that offers a wealth of information is K-Stars, which is another open source project that can be downloaded for Windows, Mac, or Linux. For a quick reference to what's up in your night sky, I recommend the website Heavens Above. And finally, Google Sky Map is an excellent tool to help you identify objects in the night sky on a real-time basis with nothing but your smartphone. which one is right for you? I suggest you try them all and have fun doing it. I will put links to all of these in the description below. Until next time, keep looking up.